Hi guys, excuse how messy I look, but I wanted to do this video to show you how I personally sew my ribbons and elastics on my Pointe shoes. Now, it depends on what kind of ribbon you prefer, but I use Bloch Elastorib ribbons, which are these. They have, let me show you, a little bit of elastic in the centre, well not the centre but near the ribbon, and it helps you to not get Achilles tendonitis or any other problems, and they're also more comfortable to wear I think so. I tend to use these. You can get them by a variety of brands, but I use the Bloch ones, and they have there's a specific way that you sew these on, because you want to make sure that the elastic bit is on like around the back of your ankle, supporting where it needs to be supporting basically. You can also, use this method with other ribbons that I'm going to show you, because some people prefer the normal ribbons, which can be bought from anywhere, any colour you wish. Just make sure that they're not rough satin and they're the proper ribbons of Pointe shoes. Basically, some ribbon comes pre-cut already, so you don't have to worry about cutting it, but there are other videos that show you how to cut the ribbon to the exact length you require. But once you've done it once, you kind of know exactly what length you need. Now, these come in a set of 4, so 2 for each shoe, and they're already pre-cut, so no need to worry about that. And I take them off my old shoes and reuse them, because otherwise you're paying out like £5 up for a pair of ribbons. Now, once you've got your ribbons, you also need your elastic. I wear elastic on my shoes because it helps keep my shoes on, and I also feel more supported, and generally when I'm like rolling up through my shoe don't ping off. I recommend everyone should have elastic on their Pointe shoes. I wear my elastic on the back of the shoe, not on the back, I have it this part here, and I sew it not through the drawstring casing, but slightly below, and just to keep it on my ankle. But there are other methods of sewing elastic, like crisscross suede. Some people prefer thinner elastic. Personally, I find that really irritating, and I don't think it's very good for your feet either. Some people like to sew their elastic so it's actually on the drawstring casing. I like to do it so it's not on show, but again, it's up to you. Some people have to sew vamp elastic across the vamp to stop their feet from popping out, especially if they've got banana feet. Some people sew their elastic a bit more further down the shoe if they've got a very high instep as well. But yeah, this is my method. So once you've got your elastic, I use this elastic, which is the Bloch Covert Elastic, also known as invisible elastic. This can be bought from various places and haberdashery stores. It usually comes in a big roll like this, so you'll need to know where to cut it for the exact length. I'll show you how to do that. Again, you can reuse your elastics from your old Pointe shoes, but I just happen to have some new laying around, so that's cool. Then you'll also need sewing needle. I use either a thin one like this, don't know if my camera's going to focus, oh there we go, or I use a thicker one depending on what I want to be doing. I also darn my Pointe shoes sometimes around the edge. These are an old pair. I just darn around the edges because it gives a bit more stability, and also I rip the satin off because I don't want to slip. Now that's up to you what you do. Personally, I like to do that. I don't like suede tips. I find them too grippy. Now, once you've done that, you want to get your thread. Now, some people like to use dental floss, believe it or not, because it grips better. And some people like to use the bun head stuff, which I used to have, I've run out of. It's basically a thread that's a bit more stickier and thicker. Now, I don't recommend using dressmaking thread because it's too thin and you have to do quite a few rows of it. I prefer to use darning thread or the bun head stuff. Now, this is darning thread. It's not really thick, but it's thick enough. Just going to show you if my camera will focus. There we go. This stuff. Now I use this. Basically what I do, you'll need a pair of scissors as well. Particularly you want to cut some of this to a good length. I tend to cut to about there. Then you want to thread your needle quite self-explanatory really, I'm sure you know how to do that. Now once you've threaded your needle like so, I just thread it through and tie a knot in the ends. Where you place your ribbons is a personal preference. I put mine so they're at a slight angle tilting forwards. So I put my shoes on and I tie, just so you can see, I basically pop it in, tilt it at an angle going forwards. So when you tie them, they lie nice and flat across your foot. Now, bear in mind, I am using these Elastorib ribbons, so they come pre-cut. But if you're using normal ribbons, you can sew them so they're in like one big lot. There's another video I'll link to. And I make sure that they are slightly past the side seam to back there, actually more slightly forwards. I tend to do either my ribbons or elastics first, it doesn't really matter. So once I know roughly where I'm placing it, I take my foot out of the shoe and hold the ribbon like so. Now you can put a little pin tack in there, just show you how forward and a tilt I have it. Now I'll just hold that there like that. Thing to mention about Elastorib ribbons, in fact any ribbon, is you want to make sure that before you sew it, you just place it gently in your shoe like this where you're going to have it, and you wrap it around your ankle to see where the placement of the elastic's going to be and if you've got enough ribbon. So I've done that there, as you can see. Now the elastic is basically going to place. So it's about there, oops, and the elastic is lying there. Now you see these Elastorib ribbons, you'll notice that one side is a bit more rough edge and the other side is flat. You want to make sure that you sew it so this bit lies around your foot, ankle, and that bit is on the outside. Right, now I'm going to show you how I start to sew my ribbons on. I'm not going to show you every single ribbon I do because we'll be here forever. I'm just going to show you the basic gist. Now I know where my ribbons are placed, but you might need to tack yours into place where you're going to have it. So I have mine about here. Get your needle and thread, and I start, it doesn't matter how messy you make it because nobody's going to see, and everyone has their own method for this, but personally I like to do it this way. I start by pushing through the drawstring casing. Don't go through the drawstring though, and then I go at a slight angle and I do crisscrosses. So I come through like this, then I go through again and knot it off, so then pass the needle through the loop so you make a knot like so. And basically what I do first is I do crosses going in one direction. Now you can do any kind of stitch you want, just make sure you don't go through the drawstring itself. And I basically do a row of these, being sure to do enough to keep the ribbon on. Now some people don't do enough stitching and the ribbons come loose. I like to ensure I've got enough. Again, it doesn't matter about being a perfectionist about this. So just putting it through like so. Just want to show you a close-up there of my little row of stitches. See, it's not perfect, but it does the job and nobody can see that. Just go through the drawstring casing, but not through the drawstring, or you can do it slightly below, which I'm going to show you now because I like to do a few rows. So now I just do another row of stitches. Now this row is going to be slightly below the row I've just done, and it doesn't matter about going through the drawstring casing as long as you don't go through the drawstring. I'm just pushing it through. I don't like the stitching to show on the outside of the shoe, so just kind of don't go too far through. So I'm just going to shove these stitches through now, going at a slight angle like so. My second row. Now what I do is I go back to the first row, careful not to go through drawstring, and I basically do a crisscross. So this time I'm going under my original row and forming a crisscross. You know, it doesn't really matter, you just do any kind of stitches as long as you're keeping your ribbons on. So doing that quickly now to show you. Right, there we go. My second row at the top, I've just basically gone through to create a sort of crisscrossy kind of thing. Now I'm quite obsessed with keeping my ribbons on nice and securely, so I'm going to go over the second row now. Same kind of method. There we go. Just show you that there. See, it's not perfect, but no one's going to see that. And if you look on the outside of the shoe, you'll notice that no one can actually see where I've done it, so it's all good. Now, once done that, I basically tie it off into a knot so it's nice and secure and it's not going to come loose. Same method, pull your needle through, then go through your loop. I like to go through it twice to be on the safe side. Then you cut off the remainder, and there we go. That's one ribbon sewn. Nice and fast, fuss free. Perfectly done, well, in my opinion, for me. And then I do my second ribbon, and again I do the same kind of thing. I pop my shoe on my foot, line up, tilt my ribbon slightly forward, and that is basically how I do my ribbons. Some people prefer to sew one ribbon slightly more forward and one further back. This helps people with ankle injuries and also people that have a sickle going on, either pronating or supinating, whatever you call it. So basically, if you're on point and you're going that way a little bit, you could basically sew your ribbons so they stop you and pull your ankle in. But then that's also a strength issue, and I recommend you are doing strengthening exercises to prevent sickling from happening.